Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, Operation College Football Playoff or Bust in the 806.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. And thanks as always for making us your first listen. Today's episode brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money and use our code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you once again. And on today's episode, a topic I was anxious to present to the audience, get your thoughts on, as recently in a conversation with On3 Sports, Joey McGuire discussing not only the upcoming season, but of course, a bigger picture as it relates to where the program and he as a head coach have come from since his arrival here in Lubbock. And I want to get into some angles of it that I thought were interesting and, of course, might fuel some flames of debate or argument or persuasive conversation out there amongst Red Raider fans, because the gist of it was this job has changed since Joey McGuire got on campus. So I want to really drill down into one portion of it to where they're discussing college football playoff or bust in year number 4. Of course, I also want to get into some context as to maybe why it is different than when he arrived in the 806. But in general, you and I know that it's always tough to predict the future within college sports or within college football. So for the most part, there are probably across the country a lot of jobs that feel different maybe now than they did just 4 years ago. So if you actually think it has happened here in Lubbock, it may not be the only one where you've seen some change for one reason or another, or at least the feel of change.
Yeah, I mean, specifically to Texas Tech, your league has looked. You've played in what? Am I right here that you're about to play in your? Well, you are playing in your third version of the league since he has gotten the job. I mean, Texas and Oklahoma were in it. Now they're not. Then you had the whole. The first 4 editions, and then you had the second 4 editions. So the league has changed dramatically since the time he's taken his job. That if anything, has been wild to follow, and just the rapid fashion that it is that realignment was really so that part of it is changed specifically to this job. I
think
like
your house staying in the same place, but the neighborhood keeps revolving sort of around you.
1,000%. Yeah. I mean, and we know the rules have changed. So this is everybody in college football can say this. It's like there's the pre-portal era, there's the portal era, then there's the NIL era, there's the NIL/portal era, but whatever. So all of that has, I mean, because the general manager era is now a part of this. So all of that has changed. I think Joey, has something to do with this second change, and this is where Joey really got knee deep in the weeds with his comments as relates to this article that Ari Wasserman wrote. Is that one? He's been good here in the first 3 years. And I say that as in he's had a winning record in the Big 12 Conference in all 3 years that he's been here. That was a bit uncharted prior to the decade plus, and we were going back to Mike and all those things. Because of that, like I don't know if I know the answer to this. I think part of the motivation with all the money, because this is where this conversation changes, is now we've seen a lot of investment into this thing. Part of it is because I think that you're just right there. What can we do to push them over the top, to like give them a legit chance to play ball at a different level and kind of push through? And I don't know, maybe if you were terrible and you were still rolling through the 4-8 and 5-7, time frame, those years of suck that we called them, maybe you still would have gotten the investment, but that would have felt a bit different. This is a more of a, hey man, you're standing on the cliff. I know you want to jump into that water and do a twirl and a dive and all that stuff, and then you just needed somebody just to shove you in the shoulder and away you go. Let's just hope you don't belly flop, right? But that is, I think that is part of what has changed this job is the investment, and it's facilities and it's NIL and it's all the above. But Joey has something to do with that too, because you're just, you beat Texas, you've had some winning records, you've done these things, you beat both the champ and the runner up last year, and you just needed one more, and otherwise we're having a party in Arlington and all that stuff. So but yeah, it's lots of differences.
It sounds like we're going to agree that we are buying into this job is different than it was whenever he arrived, whether anticipated or not. Kind of hard to gauge because you don't know exactly the conversations happening behind closed doors, but the context as you run it down there is pretty much all inclusive, and there's some different layers to it. I mean, I think it's really just a matter of kind of ranking how impactful each one sort of was maybe over the other in changing the situation. But obviously you do have the context within the Big 12 conference that changes and shifts. And you do, sort of have, I think in most ways, a baseline pulse restored to this program. You're not reaching peaks necessarily not seen before, but you have gotten yourself back into some more relevant conversation as you get into October and November in the regular season. There was a peak you hadn't seen before, as they just decided to kick her off with an experience unlike any other in a single season in Red Raider football history, that toppling Texas and Oklahoma in the same season. And Chris, we know those are always bonus point opportunities when you're beating somebody your fan base really cares about beating. So that was a nice opening salvo, but there's a little bit of an increased expectation, I think, around things you did on the field, obviously, and then some of what Joey McGuire was able to present as far as just himself and his program, his staff, just what they were culturally and from an identity standpoint. But I think one of those things, and this may be the biggest thing, I think this is what I may offer up to you that possibly has changed the job the most, and it is out of, in my opinion, Joey McGuire's control for the most part. That was the defection of Texas. That was the defection of Oklahoma. That was the shifting sands as far as realignment, and maybe a thought of nearing sort of a conclusion when it comes to this great shift, even though we think there is still one more. I don't know. See, I'm using the language there, one more. I'm not certain about it, but it feels that way. Maybe one more shift still to come. I think the motivation aspect that's tied to that support you're describing was spurred on or had fuel added to its fire in a way that was kind of beyond, hey, just who the head coach is or just what's happened on the field. It's sort of more in the realm of now or never to try to put your best foot forward and reserve a seat at this kind of so-called big table. So I may put that at number one and say just in this short window of time, those kind of situations seem to me to have really changed, and thankfully in a positive way for Texas Tech, because it resonated with very motivated and resourced individuals that said, okay, we will make a stab at putting our best foot forward. But to me, that may be the biggest thing on the list that actually impacted the job changing. What do you think?
Yeah, because if we were talking about it, had you not been successful in the last 2 or 3 years, and you're still dealing with all this other stuff, maybe you don't invest it, but maybe the change is made is like, hey, we need a new head coach, or we need somebody different in charge of our program that we do want to get behind and invest in. But obviously Joey's been really good, and the staff's been really good, and all that. But you're right, there is a largely a tech component to this, in that the folks that are trying to help here want the football program to do well, just because that's the fun part, right? But there's also a Texas Tech component, and like, well, we're kind of trying to, I don't want to say save, because your university doesn't need saving. You're trying to maintain, if not improve, your university's status, with the fact of we're trying to fight for the city of Lubbock, enrollment at this school. I mean, there's some big picture thoughts going on here.
Hey, yes. We're primping, we're planning, we're Gussying up our best. All right.
Yes.
And everybody knows why.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So they're, because this is an immediate investment, but there's also some thought that we're kind of playing this game within the rules, but we're kind of playing a bit of the long game. And I say long game is in the next 2 to 4 years, whenever things could look a bit different. And again, people have different opinions and on what the landscape. I just know when those next round of media rights agreements get renegotiated, this sport and everything else will look different. I just don't know if anybody really has a grasp of what that is. Fewer leagues, more regional, less regional, more streaming, whatever. I don't know. Something's changing, and probably plural there as far as put an S on something. And I think you're trying to ensure that you're still have a seat at the table. So that is part of it, without a doubt. And it's interesting too, because this league, you mentioned the realignment aspect.
First, today's episode brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all the money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it can be easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. You're going to love the all-in-one convenience. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money today. Use our code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com and our code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year.
This league is so fascinating because you can point to it and say, man, you should win it every year. Or, man, it's a really tough one, or it's really exciting. There's no consensus on who should be the favorite this year. Zero. I mean, I just saw a national publication that had Baylor picked to win it. I've seen Kansas State recently picked to win it. Iowa State in some formulas picked to win it. Arizona State and Texas Tech have had some conversations about, so pick your mathematical formula, pick your favorite writer, pick your favorite whatever, and all that. In some ways, it's more difficult to try to win it because it is a different version of itself, in that some of this is totally out of your control. Who did I get scheduled? Yes, if I go win them all, I'm probably going to be in a spot to play for it. But what if like I need to be able to play so and so, and they're just not on our schedule? I mean, what if we got a weird, draw compared to somebody else? So it's different than the round robin that we dealt with for so many years, which I do miss. So that component is different. And then obviously there's 8 new teams in this deal that didn't used to be around here. Some of which have been really good additions, some of which haven't. So I don't know. It is. But this is all about adapt and thrive, man. And I think Joey, to his credit, they have been able to, since on the job, they have been able to adapt to the times, cultivate donors, cultivate what a salary cap would look like, and general manager and scheme and whatever, because they're just dealing with a completely different sport than they were 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah, I think that's another thing that is sort of out of the control of Coach McGuire, whoever the head coach is, and that's the shifting competitive circumstances in the Big 12 Conference. Everybody kind of feeling like, hey, why not us? There's a trophy up for grabs still. Some heavy hitters have left the neighborhood. Why not us running up there and grabbing it? And that would probably be the case regardless of who the head coach is. Of course, Coach McGuire, and some of the encouraging signs you've seen football-wise obviously leads you to have some higher expectations as you move through these seasons. Coach McGuire, from a personality standpoint, easy to root for, easy to get behind. So that leads you to want to have some higher expectations as you get further into his tenure. But I think we're also, Chris, in a way, kind of talking only about the build-up to now, but maybe not the greatest catalyst to it all so far. That being actually landing the roster that you have landed. I mean, you've got the motivation and all of these things and what you can point to over some previous seasons to say, yeah, you should expect to continue to take steps forward. And then boom, all of a sudden the 2025 transfer portal cycle hits, and you want to talk about fuel to the flame. I mean, you land the roster that you do. So you may say the job has changed a bit just in that regard since you last played a game, which is only a few months back.
Yes, because I think not only did you go add to your team, you added all conference types to your team, you added starters to your team, you added depth to your team. Your team looks like, and I say looks, yes, on paper, but that's really the point that people need to understand. The eyeball, it looks vastly different than. I mean, I've told you these stories before. Like when you get on the field and you're playing LSU in a bowl game or Ole Miss in a non-conference game, or you're playing Texas or Oklahoma, there's just certain programs that you're like, whoa. And yeah, you would have a Tyree Wilson, or you would have some guys that would look the part. You got a team full of them now, and that's where. That's what I'm excited about, is like you can feel good about what you're trotting out on the field every day. And I can't wait to see other folks across the sideline going, oh, okay. So that's what a number one portal class looks like, mixed in with a bunch of really good returners. So yeah, the team looks and feels and should be vastly different than the last time you took the field. That's the point. And that's why this job is different, maybe this year more than most, because of expectations. And I don't know where we go next, Cowan, but like I've seen like, oh man, hot seat, or you better win or else, and that's worth a conversation in and of itself.
Well, okay, so we're in the neighborhood of, yes, the situation has changed. That's the status report. But to what extent exactly, that's probably a little more difficult to figure out, I guess, as a fan. And that's where you kind of dive into the meat of the matter whenever it comes to this perspective from On3, saying in part, quote, "This is the world of NIL where a coach can see his circumstances change through no fault of his own. The goalposts move quickly as it pertains to what's expected of McGuire after he was hired. Yes, he was always expected to win, but when he took the job, did he feel like it was college football playoff or bust in year 4? Question mark. Are we actually there when we're talking about bust mode? What does it mean to you? College football playoff or bust?
Yeah, he may say that. I mean, I will, and I'm not trying to dumb it down or lessen expectations. You know where I'm at on this. And I actually am going to agree with. I'm going to reference that conversation I heard that James Blanchard had on that podcast that he did recently. It was a national one, and he was kind of asked something similar. And again, one may lead to the other, so it may be semantics. I just feel like this is a failure and a major bust if you're not in Arlington. Okay. Some would go even further and say, man, you gotta win in Arlington. And at that point, then that's when the CFP is absolutely, and maybe there's some slim circumstances where if even if you make it to Arlington and don't win it, you still would get to go. But I just don't think you can count on that right now. But getting to Arlington is, because again, you've never been. We've documented this. You've never been a part of that. You are one of very few schools of the old schools that have never taken part in that game. Like, I don't think Kansas has ever made it. Again, you don't want to be in a conversation with Kansas as it relates to football, even though they are on an uptrend, but that's not a good thing. I don't think West Virginia had ever made it. But there was just a handful. I mean, Baylor's been there. TCU's been there. Iowa State's been there. Kansas State's been there. I mean, it's like, Oklahoma had been there. Texas has been there, obviously. So it was just like, yeah, you
mad at me or what? What's
no, I don't.
I remember, Chris.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but it's time to kick that door down. Oh. But what is either Big 12 title game or bust, or what is CFP or bust? What does that mean? What does the bust mean? Like, that's what I always say. Like, what Okay, I get that it's Big 12 title game or bust, or okay, or what? Like, and my thought there is that I just don't think, like, I've seen some hot seat on Joe. There's pressure, immense pressure. I'm not shying away from that at all. There is expectations. Again, not shying. But if you go 8-4 or 7-5, and again, I don't know, what does that look like? Because there's different 8-4s, there's different 7-5s, there's different 9-3s, there's different 10-2s. But I mean, it's all about context, injuries, or did you get screwed on a call, or whatever? I don't know. There's different versions of those, but I just don't envision if you don't get to the Big 12 title game, we're going in a different direction. I don't envision that at all. That's not what I think. You're gonna. You are going to figure out the set of rules that you've got, and you're going to swing away and keep trying. I mean, now if you go 4-8 or 5-7, maybe that conversation is different on who you go forward with, on coaches or assistant coaches or head coach or whatever. But I just don't envision that happening this year. But I just think people need to understand what, like, boom, or Big 12 title game or bust, or CFP or bust, what that actually means.
And I, in general, would have to agree that I'm not taking it to some extreme of a hot seat conversation, anything like that, boom or bust.
Right.
Some terminology I probably wouldn't apply to the situation. But I do agree with sort of your thinking along the lines of be somewhere you haven't been before in the century in Arlington, competing for some conference hardware. I guess we'll see what happens on the other side of that. But the pressure is justified. And I think something else that we'll throw into the pressure cooker conversation as we have it and continue to look ahead to the fall this offseason, Chris, is admittedly the schedule that sets up for you this regular season. Again, just kind of like we're talking about earlier in the show, as it relates to the conference and competitive circumstances changing, the schedule friendly. Am I going too far to say that? I mean, I think there's opportunity for the taking here if you are anything like you expect yourself to be.
I think it I don't know if it's friendly. I think that last year we thought it set up a certain way, and then it really wasn't the way we thought it would be, right?
Yeah, it was pretty much the opposite. Good point. I should learn my lesson. Why am I doing this again to myself?
because here's what I would offer up. Because one school that I failed to mention that's been a bit surprising, although Vegas and different publications, it appears that, like, as I mentioned those conference favorites earlier, one school I failed to mention was Utah. And part of you, and like, we didn't even mention BYU, and depending on their quarterback situation. So those are, and you play both of them. My point of bringing Utah up is, I mean, you are going to have games on the road against three other programs that I think I've seen picked to win this league. I don't know if I would term that easy or it sets up great. I mean, Utah, Arizona State, and Kansas State, by some form or fashion, have all either been picked to win it or are clearly like in that top tier of expected finishes as it relates to this league. And those are 3 road games. So your home schedule certainly seems a bit, I don't want to say like easy or manageable, but your toughest tests are going to be away from home. In Salt Lake and in Tempe and in Manhattan. And then, like West Virginia is picked to finish like almost last in most of these. But what's fascinating about sports is that that's at the end of the year. That's holiday weekend. How much craziness happens at the end of the year in the sport. You go, what? Didn't see that coming. And then I know, couches being burnt aside. I know crazy things happen in Morgantown. So I just say all that to say, I think this is going to be a bit tricky, especially the road schedule. Like, and then Houston beat Kansas State last year. They beat TCU. Those were good teams, and they were terrible last year. But that was Sheil Wood getting it done on the defensive side. But that's your other road trip in conference. So sets up, sure, but easy or manageable? I don't know. I don't know if I have a full grasp of that just yet.
I felt like, I don't think it's crazy to say that there was a bit of a road monkey on the program's back heading into last year. You didn't just chuck it off. You had a painful one in Fort Worth, didn't go your way, but I felt like you did some work, or at least took some baby steps, word to Dr. Leo Marvin, in the right direction. I mean, You get some impressive wins in Tucson, the hard-fought one in Ames, Iowa. You do what you do against Oklahoma State, and you survive that one. So I think the monkey has gone to a degree as we're rolling into next year, and it's probably just kind of a media thing anyway, maybe to assign some stuff from season to season, because each one's a different one. You got a different cast of characters, but that was sort of one of those boxes left to be checked, I guess, in the McGuire era. But you did in a way, I think, at least last year.
Yeah, and like I would say that if you don't get to where you want to go, Cowan, this year, I think it'll be because of some of these games on the road. I just feel like I don't want to like gloss over the BYUs or the Oklahoma State games at home or the Oregon State game or whatever, but I just feel like that. But I do think you're in a better place now than you were. I think your team is older. You're bigger up front. You're deeper. Again, you don't have an identity yet as far as like, okay, when the rubber meets the road, like who we handing it to or throwing it to when we got to have it. I don't know if we know all that yet.
Yeah, but because remember Ames, Iowa, we had immediate answers for both of those questions, and they came up as solutions.
Because like I saw, it's funny you mentioned that result because I rewatched those highlights the other day because Iowa State football, the Twitter account popped out, like, hey, hey, Iowa State fans, what game do you remember most from last year? And then the Texas Tech football account was like, this one was my favorite, and they put the highlights of the win up there. And I just know there's plenty of social media teams out there at these other schools that are going to love to point and have fun at your expense if you don't get it done with whatever price tag that was rumored or whatever. If you don't get it done, but I just will tell you, Taj Brooks in the corner of the end zone, and I thought Jordan Brown had scored. I really did right before it. I mean, give the man a half a yard. What are we doing? But it ended in dramatic fashion, and keep in mind, it wasn't lost on me. Iowa State was 7-0. They were feeling it. They were 11th in the country. It was all, and then it just kind of didn't have that good feel that day, and they just didn't have it. And you're going to have those days, and you just got to figure out a way to overcome by handing it to somebody like Taj Brooks. But we don't know who those names are just yet.
Throwing to somebody like Josh Kelly, wasn't it his third or fourth down, I think?
And a couple of them. He had a touchdown in that game, but it was a fourth down. And who are these people?
Putting together a special season is hard. Just another example in a long line of examples. As to that, you're going to have adversity strike every weekend. You know that. How much of it are you creating for yourself, and how are you responding to any of it that's coming your way is what's going to separate you from being where you want to be to something that's more disappointing. But can't wait to find out how it's going to shake out for Texas Tech. And we certainly know that in a lot of ways, Chris, you're going to find yourself once again in so many similar situations like we've seen before, where you got a one possession kind of difference, home or away.
But you know what?
It's gut check time.
You know what you do. What I hope to find is that I hope that this is a defense that wins games for you too. Maybe you don't. Maybe you don't have to hand it to Taj to win a game. Or somebody like that. Maybe David Bailey like sacks the quarterback and the ball comes out and somebody scoops it up and scores the other way to win a game. I mean, I'm looking forward to some of those kinds of plays being made, because I'm telling you what. I mean, I don't know if you saw this or not, but the PFF graphic the other day about like top newcomers in the country, it was like Texas Tech's defensive line was like third on the list of top 10. I was like, they just went all the above, and like, we're like, yeah, the whole group belongs on the deal, so we'll just give them their own little category. But that's what you've added, and that's really the highlight with this team. And so maybe the bread and butter or the who wins you a game, maybe it looks a little bit different than it has in the past. But that's what makes this anticipation so much fun.
You got to love it. Invite the whole team, all phases to contribute. Kill them all. That's the theme of the day. Put it on a banner right there on University Avenue. Kill them all. We may need to work with Metallica on some licensing. Chris, appreciate your time as always, man. Enjoyed it. Thank you for another day that you've gotten me through. this offseason as I'm biding my time, trying very patiently to await one of the most highly anticipated seasons ever in the annals of Texas Tech football. So thanks for talking it out with me once again. And I hope you'll join me uno más as we dive into the mailbag for one more round this week.
As the head coach says, man, we're all in this thing together, man. Absolutely. Enjoyed it. One less day. We got to maneuver our way through, but yeah, we'll get through it together. Absolutely. But keep hope alive, people.
That's right. And if he were here, he would also say, kill them all. Remember it. Put it on a sticker. Okay. Thanks for being out there, and get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. Appreciate the everydayers and the Matador Mob for always being out there as well. Find the link to a free 14-day trial in our show notes. That's your direct line to Chris and myself with one-on-one text sent straight to your phone. For Chris, I'm Casey. Thanks as always for the time. We hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.